is having some free download stuff along with it, and there's some Java that's issued. Maybe I can help.
There are tons of these.
Tons of those, I know, but is that's a similar way because you would download
Right.
a program that had a vulnerability and then put it in and whatever.
Here's what the bad people do. They do a thing called fuzzing. Okay? And so let's take an Adobe PDF, for example. You know, in Adobe PDF, it's supposed to have a certain structure, and there's supposed to be these fields. Let's call this A, B, C, D. And what they will do is randomly scramble some part. It can even be things like the variable names. Okay? So they randomly scramble some part of the file. Okay? These are the bad guys. The bad guys are doing what's called fuzzing. So they're randomly scrambling just a little baby part of the file. Okay? Flipping a bit here, there, and everywhere. Okay? But it's one at a time because you got to know when it does it. So I randomly, here's my step one. Step one, randomly scramble some part of the file. Step two, I open the file in Acrobat. Okay? And then step three is, does it crash or not? Okay? If it doesn't crash, what do? We go back to step one. Okay? So we use no exploit or no vulnerability. That means I didn't find a vulnerability, and I can't spell the whole thing, sorry. So no means there's no vulnerability in that little bit I did. If there's a yes, then it's time to tailor code in that field to see if it will run it, okay? And this is where it gets all dicey too, because the operating systems people, we go back to this one, think about the Heartbleed one. Remember, it'll send some part of the server's memory. The operating system people try to randomize the memory so that it's hard to find where the stuff is, okay? That's why you got basically a random chunk back. And so these guys have to find, I should say the program, oops, Adobe Acrobat. So we're trying to see if Acrobat will run it, okay? Microsoft is doing their best to stop you. Everyone's trying to stop you, but that's what you do. So they fuzz and fuzz and fuzz, and anyway, if you find code, that means you're going to get money. Okay, that's a lovely $sign. And there's all these things. Oops, find code. By the way, these are called a 0-day exploit. Okay, so I find the code that will run. So I need to know what, not just what the field is, but what to type in the field, what to put in, what kind of nasty stuff to put in that. And once I find that code, I have what's called a 0-day exploit. And they just had a thing where the NSA tries to find these. Isn't that fun? So they have their own team like working on these. And the Obama administration for a while was saying, we aren't going to do this anymore. Anytime we find one of these exploits, we'll tell everybody. But they changed it a little bit. And they said, anytime we find one of these, we'll tell everybody unless we think there's a reason we don't want to tell anybody. So they're going to hold on. They're basically saying, well, we're just going to hold on to them. Because these are valuable, right? 0-day means no one knows about it, okay? Day one is the day the patch is issued, okay? So if you're the one that found it, there is no patch issued, okay? That's why it's 0-day. You're on day 0. On day 1, just speaking of this also, on day 1, if someone issues a patch, so for example, every Patch Tuesday, I think it was last week or the week before, Microsoft issues a patch, or all the patches they have for the preceding month. And so what people will do is, when Microsoft announces all the patches, the hackers can go through the patches and look for the vulnerabilities. This is a really crazy game, huh? And one of the big stinks about Heartbleed is that the people that discovered it on the day one when the patch was issued, they not only said there's a vulnerability, they also said where it was. So literally on the day the patch was issued for Heartbleed, they also released the code that said how to exploit the vulnerability. That was stupid. Or basically told them how to do it. But either way, so Microsoft, let's say for Microsoft, they might release a thing that said, there's a vulnerability in Microsoft Office. Someone might send you a malformed. I guess that's over here. If you ever see the word malformed, oops, I can't even write, sorry. Malformed. Anytime there's a malformed file or request, it's a buffer overrun, okay? So the Microsoft might say, there was a malformed, if someone sends a Microsoft Word user a malformed file, then it could lead to remote code execution. What they're saying is there was a vulnerability, and if you scramble some part of a Word file and put the code in it, that you can run code on someone's computer. Okay? And they're still all over the place.